son of Florence Barrow and Charles Springer. I was born on June 22nd, 1913, the second of 3 boys. I was only 1 year old when my father died. My mother Florence left Barbados to work abroad and left me and my brother in care of our aunt, Florence. My mother, Florence Barrow, came from the family of Robert Barrow, who was the grandfather of Errol Walton Barrow. She was also the sister of Bishop Reginald Barrow, father of Dame Nita, who succeeded me as first female Governor General, and the Right Excellent Honorable Errol Walton Barrow. That made me a cousin of Errol Walton Barrow. I had received my primary education at Wesley Hall Boys. I also went to private lessons so that I might reach the standard that was appropriate for my age. Our home was one that was conducive to study, and my brother and I did exceptionally well academically. In 1931, I became a Barbados Scholar in Classics. While at Harrison College on a foundation scholarship, I was following in the footsteps of my older brother Charles, who had won a scholarship in mathematics and had received first-class honours. My scholarship qualified me for entry to Hertford College in Oxford, where I gained both bachelor's and master's degrees. I had no one to advise me about a career, and in those days a black chap, and for that matter any Barbadian graduate, had limited options. You either had to be a doctor, a lawyer, or a school teacher. If you didn't win a Barbados scholarship, you had to be a civil servant. Unless of course you had a parent who was in business. But the people in business were mostly white. Having studied law at the Inner Temple, still being uncertain of my life's work, I was called to the bar in 1938. Before I graduated, I applied for a teaching post through one of the firms of educational consultants and tutorial colleges in London. How they replied was disconcerting to say the least. My fee was returned and I was informed that no one of colour would be recruited for a teaching post by them. My response, far from being bitter, with my twinkle eye and smiling face, commended them for their conduct in telling it as it was, and for their honesty in returning the fee. That kind of prejudiced behaviour was common in Britain and more so in Barbados, but it was my determination to fight against injustice. News of the 1937 disturbances reached me while on summer holiday on the Isle of Man. Later that summer, I began associating with Grantley Adams, who came to England after the disturbances to meet with the people in the colonial office. I was able to arrange his meeting and make his stay comfortable. On my return to Barbados, he said, "Hugh, you've got to come in with us." And that was the start of my political life in Barbados. My family always felt that the way forward for people like myself was through education, and that education should be used in a positive way to help the people of Barbados. I was trained not to accept racism and to think that no one was better than me, and therefore I maintained my dignity. Administration was my gift, and I organised and became the first General Secretary of the Barbados Workers' Union. According to Sir Alexander Hoyes, my methodical mind, gift of organisation, capacity for hard work and skill in negotiations was a great asset. Through my efforts, I was able to unionize even agricultural workers. In 1940, having decided to contest the seat in the general elections on a Progressive League ticket, I commented to an audience at the steel shed. "I have been hearing that some of you think that I am too proud and that I think too much of myself. All I can say to this charge is that I have always been like this and that it is now too late for me to change. You must take me as I am." They did, and I won my seat into Parliament representing St. George. Our party's plan was simple but firmly planted on the grounds of progression. We took up the agenda of Charles Duncan O'Neill, which had been laid earlier. I was working with Grantley Adams and later Errol Barrow. Our plan called for a living wage for all workers, an economic survey and census to provide accurate information on employment, wages, diet and general living conditions. We desired a modern medical service, as a unit of the West Indies Medical Service. It also included a well-planned slum clearance, a housing scheme for the entire island. It called for compulsory education, free technical schools, and meals for children who couldn't afford to pay. The point at issue is this, that no man who is properly qualified for a job should be passed over in favor of a man who is not qualified. Otherwise, we are open to all kinds of abuse. It was absolutely clear to me that the government had an overriding responsibility to level up the inequalities of wealth and opportunity in Barbados. I remember stating in the House, I do not suppose honourable members of this House ever realised sufficiently how much small increases in the prices of foodstuffs mean to the working man in the island, and particularly the agricultural labourer with small amounts of work available 2 and 3 days a week at wages ranging from 20 cents to 36 cents a day. Concerning the intelligence of my fellow citizens, however lacking in formal education, I could not associate myself with any view of peasants which regarded them as children. If we are going to assist the peasant, we must assume that he is as much a man as we are. Out of a population of 200,000, there were only 6,931 voters. Logically speaking, any representative government on that basis is a farce. In my very first work at the Barbados Workers' Union, I wrote the Constitution of the Union. I purchased the first buildings that became the Union's home. I also helped to structure the divisions of the Barbados workers. I also recruited Frank Walcott, who later became a national hero. In 1944, I was elected to the Executive Committee, and by 1946, under our first Premier, G.H. Adams, I took up responsibility for education, legal department, agriculture and fisheries. These would become ministerial portfolios under cabinet system in the 1950s. However, by then there really weren't any important challenges left. By that I mean that we had established a political party, a trade union, and made significant changes in the constitutional arrangements for responsible government. These were the critical basis on which future political, economic, and social change would come. We felt that we had established a framework that others could build on. In 1947, I left Barbados to take up the post of Registrar of the newly established UCWI, University College of the West Indies in Jamaica. My contribution to professional and political life was varied. It included being a member of the House of Assembly, General Secretary of the Barbados Labour Party, Acting Governor and Governor General of Barbados, as well as serving as Director of the Commonwealth Education Liaison Unit, Commonwealth Assistant Secretary General, and Secretary General of the Association of Commonwealth Universities. They bestowed 15 honorary degrees on me for my distinguished service, and in 1971, I was offered knighthood. In 1973, I received the Doctor of Laws honoris causa from the UWI, and in 1980 from the University of New Brunswick. In 1984, 3 years after my retirement from the post of Secretary General of the Association of Commonwealth Universities, I was called to serve as Governor General, and did so until 1990 when ill health forced me to retire. I would say goodbye to life a few months short of my 81st birthday, on April 14th, 1994. After which Sir Roy Marshall would comment, a great Barbadian and an exemplar of what we should all be. I speak the truth.